Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all. So, because I don't have very much time and none of my plugs were charged up, I'm going to have to jump right on into it. What I did find was quite interesting, but I would have to talk about it when I kind of wanted to do an introduction, but I promise I don't have time. And I only don't have time because of my chargers. Nothing is charged. But there's some real interesting stuff going on. And I've seen that he has talked to a couple of different people. I wanted to really check them out first. The story behind. But I think I need to just go into the one that I have already watched to see what the difference is with the ones I haven't watched, so that I will know what's really going on.
Or if it's a ancient family. After 10 years of undercover work, leading 7 plus undercover child rescue missions in 15 countries, I realized that the problem was bigger today than it was 10 years ago. This is the moment that changed my life. He went in the house where the children are. He was there for about 10 minutes. And
Y'all with me? This is driving into the human trafficking. Undercover, it was operation in Colombia, where it kind of ties into Epstein, Trump, Diddy, the elite, human trafficking, government undercover. Okay? And this is the one I have watched before. Y'all ready?
after 10 years of undercover work, leading 70 plus undercover child rescue missions in 15 countries, I realized that the problem was bigger today than it was 10 years ago.
Did y'all
This
hear
is the
that?
moment that changed my life. He went in the house where the children are. He was there for about 10 minutes, and we could hear some. After 10 years of undercover work, leading 70 plus undercover child rescue missions in 15 countries, I realized that the problem was bigger today than it was 10 years ago. This is the moment that changed my life. He went in the house where the children are. He was there for about 10 minutes, and we could hear some of the children cry. They were so scared of coming out and meeting the men who were supposed to. Pretty soon they came out and they had 4 virgins. They had 3 little girls and 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. He was taken from Haiti. He was given that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt.
Oh, wow.
For about 10 minutes, and we could hear some of the children cry. They were so scared of coming out and meeting the men who were supposed to. Pretty soon they came out and they had 4 virgins. They had 3 little girls and 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. He was taken from Haiti. He was given that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt.
I don't know, Paul. Every conversation I've ever had in my life, this has got to be, I can't, it blows your mind. I can't even imagine. I don't know if I could have done what you've done.
But at that point, the Child Protective Services people were in with the children, and to calm them down, they were laughing and singing with the children. And compared to the crying I heard half an hour before, that laughing and singing, that sound of freedom, was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard.
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100
Y'all
songs
come
on the
in
piano.
hitting the like
Hey,
button. I am not
that's not really
playing
who I
with
am.
this one. I
I can tell
will
by that.
shut it down. Come in hitting the like button.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, my friends, all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving goes to our God for that, because he deserves it. He's our God. I have a very interesting guest today. He's a billionaire. His name is Paul Hutchinson. Very, very successful guy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read some of his business accomplishments. I'm sure you'll be impressed with that. But there's more to it. The reason I have Paul on here because he has done major work in rescuing children that were involved in human. You saw the movie Sound of Freedom. If you didn't, you need to go see it with Caviezel. He starred in it. It was a great movie. It was a movie that was shunned by all the studios. Nobody wanted to distribute it. Nobody wanted to touch it. And then Angel Studio, Christian-based studio, took it over, became a huge hit. Terrific. It's a teardrop. You cried through it when you see what they did to these kids, the way they human trafficked them. But Paul, very interesting, because Paul was one of the major financiers of the film, number one. And number two, he was one of the people that they featured. He didn't act in it, but it was his character that rescued a bunch of these kids. Unbelievable story. I want to read some of his credits. This is a very successful guy. He founded 15 companies throughout his entrepreneurial career. One of them, he co-founded
Okay, y'all. I gotta jump on
private
in.
equity.
I don't have a lot
And I
of
want to start out with, I want to ask you one question about Epstein.
battery
Everybody
time.
wants to know. Do you ever think that we will get the files really released, unredacted, the real files, everything that supposedly exists on Epstein?
No, absolutely not. You know why? Here's the thing.
I assume.
Here's the thing. If you wanted, if you were an entity, I won't say if it's a three-letter entity or if it's a ancient family entity, you know, whatever. If you're an entity that wanted full control, you wanted to control the votes of a senator, of a congressman, of a judge, or you wanted to control the money of a billionaire, or you wanted to control some royalty. If you wanted that level of control, you get them on film with a 12-year-old. You control them forever. You really do. And that's really what it's about. It's a blackmail. And the CIA's book of dirty tricks has blackmail written all over it. That's really what the whole program was about from the beginning. And if we think that even our three-letter agencies are the ones that are in control, we have another thing coming. There are families, there are institutions that are incredibly powerful that have to implement a certain level of control when you get to a place of power. And that is one method that is used. It's something that's used within Hollywood. We see it all over the place with guys who are wanting to be big stars and whatnot. If they can get you at a party, they can get you on film, they can put some level of blackmail on you. Now they can pour the money and the fame and everything else and have you rise to the tops of the tops. And you know, people say you sold your soul to the devil. So that's true in many cases. It's exactly what happens. Is you see it in gangs where you have to prove your loyalty and you have to do something that now they have that control. It's so that when they raise you up the ranks, they have that blackmail on you. And that's what this whole story is about from the beginning.
But Paul, how could these people in power and authority be so ignorant as not to believe that maybe Epstein had a plot here, or he was filming them, or he was blackmailing them? How could they be so naive?
It was not naive. A lot of them trade their lust for power and money in exchange for us. Right? You know, you can have that stuff on me because I know that you're going to give me what I want.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I mean, to me, that's a real sign of weakness. I mean, you can't get that on your own. You have to rely on somebody else to provide that to you and take a risk like that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, too. There was a lot of guys at the Diddy parties. They knew they were being filmed. They knew it. From going into the parties, they knew they were being filmed.
So they had that much confidence in Diddy that he would never do something like that?
It's a trade-off. Knowing that kind of power, that kind of money, etc., can get me what I want. It happens a lot.
And for 20 years, you know, a guy like Diddy and Epstein can do all of this disgusting stuff, as far as I'm concerned, with minors and get away with it. Nobody investigating them, nobody looking at it. Is that because people in power keep everybody else away? Is that the
They're
bottom line?
involved.
Well, here's the sad thing, people, is this is more pervasive than people. This meaning
This activity.
doing things with minors, right? Is more pervasive than any of us want to believe. You in a healthy, affluent neighborhood in the U.S., you walk out in your front porch and you look left and you look right. There's a very high chance that one of those homes on your block is a dangerous place for children.
Really?
There's of all the women who are listening to us today, over 40% of them have admitted that they are a victim of some time in their life of abuse. 1/4 of them, it was as a child.
Somebody
So
didn't-
25% of all the women you know, and that's just the ones that talk about it. Now with men, it's a little bit less. It's 1 in every 5 at some time in our life. But even then, 1/4 of them was under the age of 10 years old in their own homes. This is
in their own
pervasive.
homes.
And there are so many people involved that there's too many judges, there's too many prosecutors that have dirt on them as well, that they don't want to be pushed into a position where that can be brought to light. And so yes, it's happening everywhere, and we as good Americans need to stand up and say, no, I'm sick of this crap. And here's the thing, I was a big fan of Will Smith for a long time. I'd watch all of his movies until I realized what his wife walked in on him doing in the bedroom, until I realized how many of the P. Diddy parties he was at and what was going on in those parties. And then I had to choose to support him or not support him by choosing to put my money into movies that he was a part of or not. And so we have, it's sad today because me and my wife will be looking, okay, we want to watch a movie tonight. And she'll go through and she'll say, nope, pedo, nope, pedo, nope, pedo. Okay, we'll watch a movie with that guy, right?
Really?
Because there's so many people that are involved that we have to take a step back and say, listen, I'm going to vote with my wallet of what I'm going to support and what I'm not going to support. And that includes politicians, that includes big media, that includes Hollywood, all the way across. It's not just the cartel. The biggest dangers in our society, the real bad guys, are the ones that wear 3-piece suits and have a title. Those are the guys because they're doing things with impunity. And they say that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. You see this in some of these ultra elite rings with a level of absolute power that makes them think that they're beyond retribution in
Well, what is it with people in power wanting to deal in child trafficking? And I mean, I never really even thought of this, but why? I have a question for all my friends and followers. Have you tried my wine yet? You know, in the last 2 years, we've made tremendous progress with Franzese wine, and it's really all thanks to your...
greed, arrogance, and lust. And when you've already done it all, when you've already effed all these projects, when you've already had the money, you've got all these things, then what's next? What's next?
I know, but Paul, you're a very successful guy, but this doesn't come... You're doing just the opposite.
Exactly.
You're trying to help these people.
Well, and what happens is 1 out of every 3 men who have been abused as children, if not given the help, the love, the healing
they
that
will
they need,
abuse.
become contact offenders. Now, the majority of us turn out to be protectors. Most of my undercover operators have been victims themselves as children. And they grow up saying, no, I'm going to be a protector. There's no way I'm ever going to allow a child to go through what I went through. However, if 1 in every 5 men have dealt with that kind of trauma, and 1/4 of them under the age of 10 years old in their own homes, and 1/3 of them end up becoming an abuser in physical, verbal, or abuse of it, then, and the numbers of those aren't just 1 or 2. The averages are more than 10. In fact, some upwards of 70 victims in their life.
Okay, so y'all don't want me to play this? I thought this is what y'all wanted me to do because y'all not getting the likes up. So I'm assuming that this is not what y'all really want, although y'all said it's what y'all want. I'm going to tell y'all now, I'm not going to be constantly asking y'all to hit the like button. Not on this. Absolutely not. Double tap the face of your screen. Hit the thumbs up, the three dots at the top right, hit them. Or I promise I will leave.
And so this is generational trauma.
Generational trauma.
In case of a blackout? Oh, I'd boil it.
Generational trauma. I believe
but it
that.
doesn't remove contaminants.
In fact, after 10 years of undercover work, leading 70 plus undercover child rescue missions in 15 countries, I realized that the problem was bigger today than it was 10 years ago. And I asked myself, I said, Paul, it says, if your goal 10 years ago was to eradicate this evil from the face of the earth, you're not doing a very good job, because there's more today than everywhere. And I had to take a look at it and ask myself, where the hell is this coming from? Why is there such a demand that every time we pull 20 children out of hell, another 20 or 30 more were being sucked back into the deepest recesses of hell just to fill the demand? And I found myself wishing, every undercover mission, I wish that I could go back 5 or 10 years. And if I had a time machine, and I could rescue those kids then. But even then, if we rescued them, more would be brought in. So I thought, okay, what would I do to really fix it? Well,
now Trump
I would
is
sit
just
down with the perpetrator,
sending immigrants.
and I would say, what is going on in your life that makes you think that in any way it's okay to go down that road? And I came to an understanding that most of the traffickers were trafficked themselves as children. And most of the perpetrators were victims themselves as children. Now, don't get me wrong in saying this. You know, some people get all pissed thinking, oh, Paul's a sympathizer. No, I have literally put my life in danger hundreds of times to ensure that they never hurt innocents again.
Were you actually on these undercover?
Yeah, I led or played a key part in over 70 missions, and we can go into the pit of darkness and talk about that. So,
Yes.
so I have been there. I have seen the darkest part of humanity, but I realized that the only way to fix this problem is to figure out how to heal humanity, because it's generational trauma. It is literally hundreds of millions of perpetrators in our neighborhoods. That somebody doesn't just go down to Colombia and go try to, have sex with a child. It's likely already been going on in their own families, in their own neighborhoods, and now they're expanding beyond that. And so we need to ask ourselves, do we just take everybody who's dealt with trauma and put them away? No, because the majority of them become protectors. What we need to do is have systems that in their adolescent years and their young adult years, whatever, that we can help them talk about it, we can help them release it, so that it never, ever gets to the point where they're passing on that trauma to a child.
And how do you identify, if this is going on so pervasively, how do you identify, like you said, one out of, in the neighborhood, there's so many places this could be taking place. How do you identify it? And is it mostly the fathers abusing the children?
It's over 90% of abuse, child abuse, is familial. It's a father, it's an uncle, it's a grandfather, or familial includes people that the family knows and trusts, right? And that's where even more trauma is. When we did the undercover work and we pulled these children out of hell, we knew they were being traumatized, and we could immediately get them the help, the loving, the healing that they need. What happens here in the U.S. is, a little girl is being abused by her trusted, loving guardians, her father, her uncle, her neighbor, whatever else, and then is told, keep this secret, don't tell anybody, and then it gets buried. And her entire life she's holding on to this trauma. Or even the boys, it's even worse with the boys, because very few of us as men ever talk about it. We're like, oh, that thing that happened when I was 8 by my uncle, if I talk about that, that's going to make me less of a man. No, it won't. You were 8. That was a horrible thing that happened because of somebody that was holding on to a lot of horrible pain. That child, unfortunately, was the person that had to receive that pain, and you're carrying with it. And just the act of talking about it as a man releases so much of that trauma that the chances of it being passed on go way down to almost nothing. The problem is the average age of somebody talking about their abuse as a child is 52 years old. That's my age. I've raised my kids. I've built my
Really?
career. If you're holding on to that pain, it's coming out in anxiety and depression and PTSD and addictions and all of these issues in our life. That if we can help people release it early enough, we can save millions of children in the future.
Man, this is so foreign to me. You know, Paul, honestly, it's only been in the last 5 years or so that actually, just before the movie, that I started really hearing about this and saying this is a real problem. You know,
Big
it's
problem.
like I can't even wrap my head around it. It's disgusting.
Just because good people can't even imagine.
No.
That's the thing. I grew up in a beautiful home. I didn't experience any of this stuff. And when I got a call 11 years ago from our Attorney General, and I was a successful business owner, very successful, in talk about that and why that led to a lot of ego and stuff and why that was detrimental. But I was very successful in my business career. I had billions of dollars under management in my fund at the time, and I had donated massive amounts of money to child-related charities. And the Attorney General called me, and he said, "Paul," he said, "I know you're very involved with a lot of child-related charities." He said, "I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest-growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't even know that it's happening."
Mm-hmm.
They start talking about trafficking and child trafficking and the reasons why the children are being trafficked, and I could not fathom it. Could not fathom it.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, allegedly, 300,000 children crossed the border during the Biden administration, and they were lost. You know where they are. You think it's human trafficking?
Oh, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Here's the thing. I've spent, especially since the time of the movie came out, I've spent enormous amounts of time in South
And you
America.
know what's interesting? Because he said the Attorney General called him 11 years ago. 11 years ago. Who, who was, I mean, I don't know what year this was actually made. Okay, so who was the Attorney General? And it's interesting because it's almost as if Trump people, as well as him, knew exactly what was going on. And then they brought on some type of investigation I hold that thought because I don't think at that time they knew it was Trump, but they knew about Epstein, and Trump was involved, just like Trump uh, first cabinet Department of Justice brought him in, detained him, and arrested him, charged him, but he knew he was involved to some degree. So it's just like, why did he bring it up when he ran and he knew that he was in the files? It's interesting, but keep listening.
Every single day for the last few years, I've spent a huge amount of time in Latin America, and especially over the 4 years of the Biden administration, every single day there were children that were taken in every major city throughout Latin America. Children were being taken from healthy families. Now, I didn't say wealthy families. They're quite poor. They have a mom and a dad and a loving home, right? They don't have the resources to be able to follow up and figure out where their kids went.
When you say taken, not
Taken.
kidnapped.
No,
They
they
were
were
just given?
They were, some of them, many were taken, right?
Just taken out of the home.
Happens all the time down there, but we don't hear about it because it's not an affluent family with a a nice home and whatnot. And it happens a lot. And what happens, just like what we showed in the Sound of Freedom movie, where this little boy is you don't want something bad to happen to your sister. What happens is these children were they were then told, listen, I know where your mother lives. I know where your sister goes to school. You don't want something bad to happen to them, do you? And literally within a week of them taken, these kids are completely compliant. Happens all the time. And then they're taken up to the border. They're given a phone number and an address. And
I'm going to shut it down, y'all, if y'all don't hit the like
This is
button.
your new sponsor. If you get sent somewhere else, you have to run away. You have to go to this home. And the traffickers realized that it was a lot easier to take the supply to the demand. The United States is the #1 producer and consumer of child pornography in the world.
Yeah.
In the world, right? And we're the ones that are consuming, because when you're consuming child pornography, it doesn't end there. Pretty soon these guys are fantasizing about things they wouldn't have thought was attractive 5 years ago, and then they're acting out on these horrific fantasies. This is creating a tsunami of demand, and so these trackers are bringing them up. And 2 years ago, the State Department admitted that they had completely lost 85,000 children. And then that number got increased by another almost 300,000 that they didn't have tabs on. And the reason behind it is because they were being brought across. There was 130,000 children a year that were undocumented, unaccompanied minors that were being brought across the border.
Now, so when we just heard not too long ago about Trump had those immigrants, he was trying to send 6,000 or 600 unattended minors to foreign countries, right? Same thing. Same thing, but it's coming from the president. And he's saying, oh, they are undocumented. So here are some kids, minors, that you can traffic. Okay.
If you really want to know what real immigration looks like, you look at what's happening in war-torn countries. You've got a mom and a dad and some children that are coming across. You weren't seeing that. You were seeing hundreds of thousands of children that were coming across. The fact that there was hundreds of thousands of children that came across without parents, that's telling you that something really wrong was going on.
Okay, now, y'all can't tell me that does not sound exactly like what Trump is doing right now up under our nose. Grabbing people, sending them to be trafficked.
And so, yes, I absolutely will hang that on Kamala, on the Biden administration, as the border czar, is what she was, because of the fact it was. And here's the thing. The border situation should have never been a political issue. It should have never been. This isn't about a right or left thing. This is about a human issue. And it was insane how much of that came across the border.
Well, Paul, as a Christian, I can only say this is demonic. I mean, this is really demonic. But what is the process? In other words, there is a group of people out there that will take a child, and then they got to bring them to the border. Does somebody pick them up on the other side of the border?
Well, they have a phone number and an address that aren't having an FBI background check. They didn't have any.
In other words, a phone number and an address here that they have
here in the United States.
They're
yes.
given that.
Yeah, and you'll find reports of good families who say, listen, we want to help these kids that are coming across. And so there's entire communities where they all agreed to take a bunch of these kids, and over 80 to 90% of these kids ran away from those homes within a couple weeks. Why? Because they weren't placed in the place that they were supposed to be placed, quote unquote, by the traffickers.
And do the kids just know to run away, or
they were told, you don't want something bad to happen to your sister, do you?
you got to leave?
Yeah, you've got to get in this situation. This is what you're going to do to protect your family. Now, I'm not saying that happens with all of them, but the system was set up in a way that made it very easy or the traffickers to be able to push these kids into very dangerous places here in the U.S. to fulfill horrific demands.
Let me ask you this. Recently, Cash Patel, who I happen to like, I really do, and Dan Bongino, who I happen to know, and I have a lot of respect for Dan, they said that they went over all the information about the Epstein. I have to tell you this, and I believe that they're being honest about what they saw in the investigation. I just don't believe the investigation was accurate because, Paul, I was in that exact same tier, in the exact same cell. I spent 29
Why? I
months and
thought this
7
was
days in
before.
solitary. There was no way I could have committed. No way. So I believe something bad happened.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why they're saying, I think, again, I think Dan Bongino is an honest guy, and I like Cash Patel. And if they're looking at the investigation and say, these are the results, I'm saying, why aren't you questioning this? It doesn't make sense. And I wish if they can talk to me or so many other guys that have been in that situation, they tell you it's not possible to commit. Just not.
And I agree. I think that if there are good people that are investigating the
Yeah, Biden, they all have deported some
in the
people,
investment world.
but yeah,
the
it
only
wasn't
deals that we
to this
lost big
extreme.
money
No.
on were ones where all of the documentation
See,
was fabricated.
Janet, that's part
right?
of the problem as far as hurry up, ICE, come on, get more aggressive, because he wanted to be known for deporting. And I think the numbers showed that Biden had deported more people than he had. So then it was like, hey, okay, you're not being aggressive enough. You're being too nice. Da 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 da. Because the math wasn't mathing, and now it's like grab anybody. That's what's happening now.
You can't underwrite fraud, and that's that. We can look at all the information that came in and look at these paperwork and everything else, but if that was all fabricated, then we as good fund managers at the time didn't have the ability to see the truth.
Yeah, and it's the same like you said. If we're never going to get to the bottom or see all of the files on Epstein, why should we believe that whatever was investigated or reported is accurate?
Yeah.
We should. Unbelievable. This is like mind-boggling.
And you and I share a common belief in our connection with Christ, and I truly believe that Ephesians 6:12 rings true in all of this. We are not fighting a battle against flesh and blood. This is against the darkest darkness of the universe. This is against demonic forces. You
The
cannot
Zionists.
put a child in that situation and just have it be. This isn't just men that are doing this. This is absolutely the worst thing that anybody can encounter.
Sacrifice. This is now we know it's the Zionists.
I heard from a good source about Hillary and Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton too. I didn't even want to believe it. I wouldn't repeat it. I didn't want to believe it, but that she was into this, to pedophilia also. I don't know if it's true or not, but the more I'm hearing about people in power wanting this just terrible situation, I mean, it's almost you have to believe it.
Yeah. I read a book a few years ago called Pawns in the Game by William.
Pawns in the Game.
Pawns in the Game. William Carr. It's written almost on. I think it was early 1900s. He was a high-level military intelligence guy, and he talks about how a lot of this has been put in play for a long, long time by the Luciferian order, and how those people in absolute power have
By the who order?
Have made covenants in that space.
By the who order? Luciferian? Hold on. I mean, now we know about the Zionist stuff. When I first watched this, I didn't know what I know now. But let's keep listening.
Into this, to pedophilia also. I don't know if it's true or not, but the more I'm hearing about people in power wanting this just terrible situation, I mean, it's almost you have to believe it.
Yeah. I read a book a few years ago called Pawns in the Game by William.
Pawns in the Game?
Pawns in the Game. William
Pawns in the
Carr's written
Game.
almost I think he was early 1900s. He was a high-level military intelligence guy, and he talks about how a lot of this has been put in play for a long, long time by the Luciferian order, and how those people in absolute power have made covenants in that space. And he drops a bomb and then he proves it on all of these things, step by step of the families that are involved and why they are, etc. And so, yeah, this is a battle of light and dark. This is a battle that everyone, as good, conservative, good, God-fearing men and women, have to step forward and say no. If we're going to be that candle on the hill, if we're going to be that light, we have to be a powerful light, because the darkness is stifling, and indeed it is penetrating every part of our lives. And so we need to stand strong. We need to see the divinity within ourselves and other people, and fight this fight, or else it's going to overrun us.
And how do we do that? I mean, how do we, people like myself who just, look, I have 7 kids and 7 grandkids right now. I can't even, again, wrap my head around this. How do we get into this battle and help the fight? I wouldn't even know where to begin.
People will leave the movie Sound of Freedom, and they'll say, okay, I want to do something. I want to help. I want to go rescue kids. Well, the worst that you could do is go undercover in Mexico, right? As a regular guy. You're going to get arrested. You're probably going to get shot, right? The best thing you could do is go home and hug your children. And people are like, well, how does hugging my child? What does that do? Well, the majority of children that get, especially Americans, that get put into situations like this, come from broken homes or runaways or a broken foster care program, wherein they're a lot more vulnerable, and it's a lot easier for the traffickers to pull them and take them into a trafficking type situation. In addition to that, you need a relationship with your children where they can very comfortably come to you and say, hey, Dad, hey, Mom, I don't like it. I don't like it when you tell me to hug Uncle Harry, because he touches me weird, and he tells us we should have secrets outside of you. Or I don't like going to this babysitter house because, she's showing us and tells us we should trust her more than you. Or I don't like this friend's house because her brother is showing us, he took pictures of us when we're changing, and now says he's going to use them around the school if we don't do other things. These are grooming behaviors. And it's important to understand that many children who are in this situation, even ones who are being sold for these horrible things, sleep in their own beds at night, and their parents don't even know. Many of the undercover missions that we did, these children didn't come. They were taken somewhere. They were
sleep in their bed. Hold on.
Mom, I don't like it. I don't like it when you tell me to hug Uncle Harry because he touches me weird, and he tells us we should have secrets outside of you. Or I don't like going to this babysitter house because she's showing us and tells us we should trust her more than you. Or I don't like this friend's house because her brother is showing us, he took pictures of us when we're changing, and now says he's going to use them around the school if we don't do other things. These are grooming behaviors. And,
you're right, Janet.
It's important to understand that many children who are in this situation, even ones who are being sold for these horrible things, sleep in their own beds at night, and their parents don't even know. Many of the undercover missions that we did, these children didn't come. They were taken somewhere. They were literally still living at home, but it was their babysitter, it was their uncle, it was their neighbor and whatnot that had some dirt on them already that controlled them in this situation that we're selling them. And so, in addition to that, and this is something I'm going to just go down the Christian route just for a quick second. If indeed children are much more vulnerable if they're in a broken home or a runaway or a broken foster care program, the priority for us as families, as husbands, as wives, as mothers, fathers, our priority should be whatever it takes to help keep that family together. Now, sadly, in the United States, 1 out of every 2 marriages ended up in divorce. Now, I'm the pot calling the kettle black here, right? I'm on my 3rd marriage, right? And so finally I figured out how to do it right after 50 years. But if marriages is
okay, Miss Tom, I don't know what you on. We on something serious. What you talking about? I mean, Mrs. Tom, what we doing? I thought this is what y'all said y'all wanted. What are we on? Right, but I ended that to come to this. Y'all get the likes up. I promise I'm not. Come on, y'all. Get the likes up for me, or I'm going to end it. I thought this is what y'all wanted.
I told you could do one thing every day, just one thing with your family that took that from, and it would only take you 2 to 5 minutes maximum, that could take it from 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,000. Would you want to know what that one thing
Of
was?
course.
Here's the crazy thing. So simple. Pray together with your family. It doesn't have to be something crazy. It doesn't, oh, Father art in heaven. It's simply a hold your wife's hand before you go to bed and say, hey, God, we're incredibly grateful. Thank you for this beautiful day. Please watch over our kids. And, you know, that one thing takes it from 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,152. It's one of the most crazy studies I've ever seen. Simply coming together to connect with husband and wife and family and talk to your creator. That simple 2 minutes a day
Amazing.
takes it from 1 in 2 to over 1 in 1,000.
Wow. That's amazing.
Sounds
So
simple.
hug your kids.
What do you say?
Pray with your
Yes.
wife. That's how we fight this thing. Because answer to your question, it's not, you know, how do we, yeah, we want to change laws, we want to change policies, we want to create the healing programs for the kids, the adults, etc. Yes, we want to do all of that stuff. But the real key to solving this problem is
The likes
that
are very
connection
down.
with your kids,
And it's
connection
been
with your
almost
spouse,
over
and that
200
connection
and
with
some
God.
people in here at times.
All right, let me ask you this. You didn't all of a sudden wake up one day and say, I want to get involved in human trafficking and help these kids out. How did that happen?
Well, about 11 years ago, I got a phone call from our Attorney General. And he said, Paul, he said, I know you've donated a lot of money to child-related charities. He said, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. Good people don't know that it's happening.
Was it during Obama?
No, this was the Attorney General in Utah.
Oh,
So
in
it was-
Utah.
Yeah, it was our state
State
attorney.
attorney.
Yeah.
Oh, here
And,
come
he
Utah
started talking
again.
about these operators who were in South America that identified some children. They had identified 50 or 20 children at the time in Cartagena, and they needed about $50,000 to help rescue the kids. I'm like, okay, I can help handle that. You know, I was in a really good place. You know, I had a very successful company. You know, at one point of my life, I had 2 helicopters. I had a house with 10 bathrooms, 8 private suites, 3 kitchens, a basketball court in my basement. This was the lifestyle. So, it was all ego me. But yeah, I wanted to help
Right,
kids with
Jamie.
that. I think it was me feeling guilty for the massive success that I had. So I was helping wherever I could. Well, then
Let me stop you for a minute.
Yeah.
Why are you feeling guilty for the massive success you had when you earned it?
I did earn it. And I'm not feeling guilty. What I'm feeling guilty for is the fact that I had allowed that success to put me in a place of ego and greed and lust. And we'll talk about that later and when we're talking about how to fix this problem, right?
Okay.
But in every way, I worked my ass off for that success in every way. I was completely honest all the way through and building the successful companies. And I had 4,000 employees of the company that I had started. It was massively successful. And so I wasn't feeling guilty, but I was acting out of integrity with a lot of other areas of my life.
Well, let me tell you, the reason I say that too is because I just don't like when people resent people that earned whatever they made.
Absolutely.
You worked hard, you made it, so you got $1 billion, whatever the money, and people resent that. And you have politicians saying billionaires don't pay their fair share. And my answer to is, well, change the law, do whatever you need to do, and they'll do it. They're legally
No, they
doing
still
what they're
break the
supposed
law.
to do.
Yeah.
So So I just don't like when people are
They still
resentful of
break it.
people that have made it in this country. This is what this country is all about.
Well, and I teach people how to. I have a book that's coming out next year called Conscious Capitalism or Infinite Wealth that talks about teaching people how to build massive wealth while doing massive good. See, where people get screwed up in that space is if they think that we live in a zero-sum world, right? If they think that in order to make $10 million, you literally have to take $10 million from other people to get so. If you have, and it comes from our definition of economics. I'll just a preview of it. My chapter 1 of that book is Your Economics Teacher Lied to You. Scarcity versus abundance, right? If we think that the definition of economics is the division of scarce resources, it's a fallacy. There's enough resources where everybody can have a beautiful home, everything that they could ever eat, everything they could ever wear. The problem comes if we think that in order to get ahead, other people have to lose. But if you create a true win-win-win across the board, where you could create wealth for yourself while creating wealth for your employees, while creating wealth for humanity as a whole, which is true, that you can create value that lifts everybody together. I'm super happy that Amazon exists today, and there's a whole bunch of millionaires and billionaires because of it. You know why? Because of how much time it saves them. When I can go click, 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 buy, and I don't have to waste half a day going to the store and finding what I want to find.
It's like we're Amazon's best customer here. We get a package or two every day.
Exactly.
Well, Paul, I'm going to make a deal with you. I
Yes.
want to be the first person to get that book.
I would love to.
Deal?
I will do that. I'll even give you the one before it goes to the publisher and get your opinion on it because it's such an important principle.
Yes.
And one of the things I talk about in that book that kind of answers that question before of why I got brought into the child rescue work is I had a mentor in my early 20s that said, Paul, the average person donates 2% of their income to charity. Sadly, millionaires donate less than 2%. He said, however, decamillionaires, centimillionaires, and billionaires, the number is much higher. He says, so if you just want to be a millionaire, donate 2%. He said, but if you want to be much bigger, he said, consider 10% or more. He says that the book of Malachi says that literally the windows of heaven will open, that there will not be room enough to receive it. And I'm a witness to that. I made a decision at that time, based on that conversation, that I would always find charitable things to do with a minimum of 10, 15, even 20% of my money. And you can call it God, you can call it karma, you can call it the universal law of exchange, call it whatever you want to. There's a higher power very interested in us doing good.
You got to call it God because you're corroborating Scripture.
Exactly.
Exactly what it
Exactly.
says.
I call it
You can't
God.
outgive God.
Exactly. You can't. You give more and it comes. And I tell people, how does somebody become a partner, let alone a founder of a 20, 30, $40 billion investment fund? You're not a University of Utah dropout, right? That's what I am, right? The statistical probability of me being where I am is zero. The only way that I can understand it is that I made that commitment, that covenant, that promise in my early 20s that I would give until it hurt. In fact, at the time I had that conversation with that mentor, I was earning like $2,000 a month. And I said, well, isn't it better? This is why I want to be wealthy, so I can be charitable. He goes, no. He says, be charitable now when you're earning $2,000 a month, and that road to success will be so much easier. And I remember thinking, wow, I thought I wanted to be successful so that I could be charitable. I didn't realize I should be charitable so that I could be successful in every area of life. And so making that decision early on, now I was very much involved in charities. I remember when I made that decision, I thought, okay, do I just give money to the guy on the side of the street that's asking me for money? And I did. I remember I had a friend that said, Paul, are you really making a difference? I said, you know what? I can't judge. That could have been me if I wasn't in a healthy home. I said, but over time, I realized I was contributing to a welfare mentality problem. So over time, I decided to focus fully on children. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years. I was the incoming chairman for Make-A-Wish in our area when I got that call from the Attorney General. And so he tells me about child trafficking. tells me about these guys, needed some money, so I helped to fund that mission. Then a few weeks later, one of the operators called me and he said, Paul, I'm here in Cartagena. There's not just 20 children here, there's more than 50, and there's more than 100 children in other rings that are tied to these trafficking rings in other cities. He said, we can rescue all of these 100 children on the same day, but I need your help. And I said, well, how much do you need? He said, I need you. Could you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, the head trafficker has a piece of property. He wants to develop it to a child brothel resort. He needs a few $1 million to build it out. He believes.
There you go. Y'all hear the word resort? Then he said the head trafficker. Let's listen again. Let's go.
There's not just 20 children here, there's more than 50, and there's more than 100 children in other rings that are tied to these trafficking rings in other cities. He said, we can rescue all of these 100 children on the same day, but I need your help. And I said, well, how much do you need? He said, I need you. Could you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, the head trafficker has a piece of property. He wants to develop it to a child brothel resort. He needs a few $1 million.
A child brothel resort.
He can make tens of millions of dollars a year.
But isn't it illegal there? They're allowed to
A
do
child
that?
brothel
It's illegal most places in the world.
resort.
But
where he wanted to do that?
well, here's the thing. There are certain countries, and I've been working in Colombia for the last few years and helping to change laws and policies. Here, when I did undercover work in Amsterdam, we couldn't find children for sale. Why? Because prostitution is legal, but it is very controlled, right? Now, I'm not a fan whatsoever of prostitution. It has killed so many families. However, this is what I wrote to the Senate in Colombia. If you are going to legalize it, it has to be controlled, because if it's legal to have prostitution and you don't have the girls checking in and having verification of their ages and stuff, it is wrought for opportunities for traffickers to traffic children without consequence.
Got it.
So,
but where that person was, openly wanted to develop this property and put a brothel there, would he have been allowed to do that in that area?
not allowed to do it, but the authorities would have looked the other way.
way.
Yeah, this was an island that he wanted to build it out on, and this was outside of Cartagena.
An island. All of this sounds familiar. And didn't Trump granddaddy have a brothel? Yeah.
Develop this property and put a brothel there, would he have been allowed to do that in that
Not
area?
allowed to do it, but the authorities would have looked the other way. Yeah, this was an island that he wanted to build it out on, and this was outside of Cartagena. You literally, at the time, you could walk down the street. You'd see police officers over there and you knew for sure that was a 12-year-old. And when you see some foreigner come and pick her up and the police aren't doing anything, it would happen all the time. So fortunately, those things have changed now. Colombia is now the shining example of how policies and law changes can make a huge impact in keeping the children safe.
Just a question, Epstein Island, was there any jurisdiction over that island at all? Was there any supervision, any control whatsoever?
The interesting question. So back, yes and no, right? They're back at the time, back even 5, 6, 7 years ago, doing my undercover work. If you went to another country or you went to an island or whatever else, and you did something horrible with a 12-year-old, you would have to be prosecuted in that country in order for you to, the only way to be prosecuted in the U.S. at the time is that we would have to prove that you while on U.S. soil, made the decision to go to that other country to do that horrible thing with that 12-year-old. Some of our people helped to make changes in the law where now you go anywhere in the world and you end up with a 12-year-old in that situation, you can be prosecuted in the United States, even if you're not prosecuted there, even if the laws of that country don't prosecute. And so it's amazing that has happened, because if you go rob a bank in South America, you can't get arrested and go to jail in the U.S. for robbing a bank down there. You have to be prosecuted in that country. But if you go down there, child, Absolutely. The very second you come into the U.S., you can get nailed. Even after you finish your sentence, if they did prosecute you down there, you finish your sentence there, you come to the U.S., you get sentenced again here.
And it doesn't have to be a U.S. person that you
Nope. Nope.
use.
If you're a U.S. citizen and you go anywhere in the world and abuse a child, you can get prosecuted.
Is that a recent law?
That's within the last 5+ years. So,
During
super.
Trump?
Huh?
During Trump's administration?
It was during Trump's first administration. Yeah, it for sure wasn't in the last 4 years.
Yeah, see?
All right,
See?
so let me ask you. So
See,
now you can
Ivanka.
rescue 50.
Ivanka
Yeah.
was a part of that. But was he doing that because of Epstein? Because Epstein was going to blackmail him? I mean, because he knew what was going on. He gave the feds information. But now he moving. Ghislaine Maxwell, she getting Uber Eats and DoorDash now. Okay.
And that's what got you.
Yeah. So I said, well, what do I need? He said, well, I have to have somebody who can effectively.
What that is like, well, he'll say fake news, but he's the one lying. Or he'll say it's the Democrats holding the government shutdown and, keeping it going. But in reality, it's him. So it's as if he started this operation and put laws in place, like, he wants to control it. But in essence, he don't, because he's a part of it.
Negotiate this transaction with the traffickers. He said, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to wear a $50,000 watch and negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal. These guys are going to see
Real estate
money.
Oh, did he say real estate?
And what's interesting, at the time I got the call, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was at
Real
a
estate
conference with third-generation billionaire families, and I was raising money for my real estate fund, right? And I said, well, what kind of outfit do I need? And he goes, just come dressed as a wealthy playboy. And I looked down, I have a suit that cost more than my first car.
Wealthy playboy. Is he talking about Trump? Wow.
Right, I've got this conservative blue on the outside, but it's bright pink on the inside. I had a $50,000 watch. I had cufflinks that were $2,000 cufflinks. I'm like, I think I got the outfit, right? So I jump on a plane, fly to. What was interesting too is,
Hey, my friends, a lot of you already know that just a few short months ago, I started my private community. We call it the Friends.
old, and I look back on my life and I say, I climbed this mountain, I helped build this multi-billion-dollar company, and I helped rescue this many children from slavery. Which of them matters at all? He said, you're right, Paul. He said, if your persona, if your skill sets, if that's something they need, he said, I support you. I understand you need to go. I said, even if I can only rescue one child, it would be worth it, right? And so 2 days later, I'm in Colombia, face to face with people seeing me children. The interesting thing about it, Michael, was I thought, okay, these guys are going to have, tattoos down their neck and 3 earrings in their noses. That's the look. And the first trafficker I met was a business owner. He was clean cut. He had a polo shirt, clean shaven. The second I met was a beautiful woman that worked with a modeling agency. I thought, these guys aren't traffickers.
Just, were they married?
No, they were there working together with different,
But I'm saying neither one of them had a family.
No, but yes, the businessman did.
He did.
In fact, what was interesting is between the time that I first met him and that when the sting went down just a few weeks later, I was texting back and forth with him to make sure that he was bringing, all of his inventory, etc., for me to make sure he had, so we could rescue him, right? And one of my texts with him, and I talk about this in the Sound of Freedom book that's coming out. He sends me a picture of him with his 3-year-old daughter in his back seat. Now, he wasn't trafficking her yet, but over time, most of these traffickers end up trafficking
What are you
kids.
trafficking?
Absolutely. So many times he end up trafficking their own kids when they get older. He wasn't trafficking her yet, but what he said, this was so interesting. He said, he sent me a text, and he said, after he had sent me that picture, and I was just appalled, and he said, Pablo, they called me Pablo. He said, Pablo, he said, I'm showing you my picture of her so you know why I'm doing all of this. I want to buy her Ferraris and make all this money for her. He said, I believe that God sent you to me. And what was going through my head is, you're right. God did send me.
Yeah.
Right? So I can make sure that that child in your back seat never has to go through what these children are that you're trying to do.
Did you tell him that?
No, of course I didn't.
Later on?
Hey,
My
Cynthia.
gosh. What kind of people are these? They got children and they're going to other children, maybe their own.
Well, and
I'll tell you what we would have done with them. I don't know if you know my background.
oh yeah, I do know your background, and that's what I felt I wanted to do. I was that very first meeting with these guys. I'm sitting there. I've got a Navy SEAL that's standing behind me. He's my real bodyguard and my show bodyguard, right? And he's standing behind me, and one of the leans forward and he goes, Pablo, he said, I have a gift for you. I said, really, what's your gift? This is our very first meeting where we're negotiating this party. I'm telling him, listen, I'm willing to fund your project under one condition. We're going to have a party in about a week. You're going to bring all your existing inventory. If I'm happy with what I see, I'll fund your resort. We had to get him to bring all of their children to one place at one time so we could rescue them.
So did he think you were buying them for your own personal use, or whatever you were going to do?
I told him I was giving him $500 per child just for 2 hours in the afternoon with them. That's why I was paying it. Right? But really, it was just so that we could
$500
get
child
all the
for
other
2 hours.
get them to bring all the children together.
That was the scene in the movie.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so he was so excited I was willing to do that. He says, I have a gift for you. I said, really, what's your gift? And he hands me his phone. And there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone. He said, this is Princess.
Listen. Oh, my God.
She's still a...
She's still a virgin.
He said, they started talking about horrific things I could do to this little girl. And I said, if we could help rescue these kids before they're ever trapped in the first place, that would be a miracle. And then something he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, wait, I said, you say you just took delivery of some? I said, you have more virgins? He goes, oh yeah, I got 3 or 4 more. I said, you're bringing those to my party too, right? He goes, oh no. He says, they're too expensive. I said, too expensive? I'm already paying this guy $25,000. I'm paying him $500 per child just for that time. I said, he said, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. He said, you want to, those other, it's going to cost you maybe $2,000.
He was baiting him to see what type of money he had.
It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. Now at this point, Michael, I am legitimately pissed. No acting involved. He's talking about these children like they're commodities. I've got my really nice suit, $50,000 watch. I put my hands on my chest and I said, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He said, oh no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those virgins at my party. I said, they damn well better be virgins.
Thank you, Naturally
They're not for you,
Norlands.
they're for me. You understand? He goes, oh yeah, Jefe, I understand. The stupid smile on his face. Now,
Yeah, he was
me,
testing
Curtis
his
goes, "I
money.
didn't check out the restaurant, make sure."
But did y'all understand that little girl on the
He said, you know
picture
what? He says that little girl
was she didn't have any mileage on her, so that was a extra 10 grand, cause she hadn't been touched. This is crazy. But I want y'all to hear this. But so when I start talking about these hotels and these kids and stuff, you will understand where I'm coming from.
to fund your project under one condition. We're going to have a party in about a week. You're going to bring all your existing inventory. If I'm happy with what I see, I'll fund your resort. We had to get him to bring all of their children to one place at one time so we could rescue them.
So did he think you were buying them for your own personal use, or whatever you were going to do?
I told him I was giving him $500 per
Yes,
child.
10,000.
Just for 2 hours in the afternoon with them. That's why I was paying him, right? But really, it was just so that we could get him to call the other doctors, get them to bring all the children together.
That was a scene in the movie.
Yeah, exactly,
okay.
exactly. And so he was so excited I was willing to do that. He says, I have a
Hey,
gift for you. I
Sapphire.
said, really, what's your gift? And he hands me his phone. And there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
He said, this is Princess. She's still a... He said, they started talking about horrific things I could do to this little girl. And I said, if we could help...
He started talking about horrific things that he could do to the little girl.
And then something he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, wait, I said, you said you just took delivery of some? I said, you have more versions? He goes, oh yeah, I got 3 or 4 more. I said, you're bringing those to my party too, right? He goes, oh no. He says, they're too expensive. I said, too expensive? I'm already paying this guy $25,000. I'm paying him $500 per child just for that time. I said, he said, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. He said, you want to, those other, it's going to cost you maybe $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. Now at this point, Michael, I am legitimately pissed. No acting involved. He's talking about these children like they're commodities. I've got my really nice suit, $50,000 watch. I put my hands on my chest and I said, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He said, oh no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those virgins at my party. I said, they damn well better be virgins when they get there. They're not for you, they're for me, you understand? He goes, oh yeah, Jefe, I understand. This stupid smile on his face. Now, the Navy SEAL that was behind me cleared his throat, and I didn't check out the restaurant, make sure everything is safe. Later in debriefing,
he was a Homeland Security who went undercover. He was undercover in a child trafficking ring in Colombia.
said, you know what? He says, that little girl in that phone looked like my daughter at home.
Hey,
he said, I
Samantha.
almost unholstered my weapon
You guys,
and shot
if we don't get these lights up in the next 15 minutes, I'm shutting it down. I'm just going to be honest. It'll be a part 2 another day.
Right there.
We had all to do to hold back.
Yeah. He said, but I knew if I did, he said, we would lose all those other kids. And now in the movie, my character is Pablo Delgado, the billion-dollar fund manager who quits his job to go rescue
This movie
kids.
Originated with all of what you've done?
In the Sound of Freedom movie, we took 8 different rescue missions and put them all together into one storyline. So we kind of put a lot of attention on Jim Caviezel's character. The truth is there was a lot of other operators that did some of those things. We just put all those stories together, right? And the truth is, and you read about this in the Sound of Freedom book, where the jungle was not even in Colombia. That was in Haiti. That was looking for a little boy, not a little girl. There was a lot of other operators went in dressed as doctors on different operations, etc. But the story, all those stories really happened. They just didn't happen as we showed it in the movie. But that first rescue mission, the Jim Caviezel's like, only way I can pull this off is if I can convince Pablo to help fund it and be down here. Well, I'm Pablo in real life. I was running a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. I had a special set of skills from a previous life that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. I was a rich playboy full of ego and pride and arrogance and lust. That's what I'm looking for, right? And so in the movie, Jim Caviezel's like,
Sound like that's either Epstein
he gives a picture of this 11-year-old
or
girl
Trump
to my driver, and that's what convinced me to go. In real life, I was already there. I was face to face with these traps, but him showing me the picture of that 11-year-old galvanized my commitment to help fund this, whatever I needed to do. Now, fast forward 2 weeks later, we're at this island. The trappers brought 54 children. Now we had 3 separate cities at the same time, a total of over 120 children that were at these 3 separate cities with these simultaneous operations going on. I was there in Cartagena. We're sitting there at this island. These guys bring 54 children. Almost every one of them were under the age of 16 years old. Some of them were from other countries. We put them in a separate place of the house because they're already traumatized enough. We don't want them seeing the guns and the money changing hands, etc. I'm sitting there on this chair, negotiating with these trappers on their business plan. hidden cameras capturing our entire conversation, so they couldn't come out later and say, "Oh, I thought the kids were coming to a pool party." No, you said exactly why she was there, exactly what she was willing to do. And this was a dark conversation, probably even too dark for your audience. This was a dark conversation talking about exactly what they do to these children, what they're willing to do, what they're paying them, everything, what they're forcing them to do, etc. And so and then halfway through this meeting, one of the Traff gets up and he said, "Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you." This is the moment that changed my life. He went in the house where the children are. He was there for about 10 minutes, and we could hear some of the children cry. They were so scared of coming out and meeting the men who were supposed to. And pretty soon they came out, and they had 4 scared to death. They had 3 little girls, old, and 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. He was taken from Haiti. He was given that morning because he was so scared.
He was given Kohina.
What kind of monster thinks that that's attractive? Every cell in my body wanted to just hug these.
Boy, that sound like some of that list that we saw of the kids that Trump had. One of the little boys was 11. I think he had three boys and maybe 4 girls, but they were like 11 to 14. Yeah.
Scared to death. They had 3 little girls, old, and 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. He was taken from Haiti. He was given that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt.
He was given cocaine.
What kind of monster thinks that that's attractive? Every cell in my body wanted to just hug these kids and say, "You're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents again." I couldn't say that. And I'm sitting on this chair, and they bring these girls out, and this little boy. And one of the girls was the same one he showed me on that picture. And she's standing in front of me, and she had red hair with braids down the back. Her shirt had a little kitty cat on it. She was 11. And her face had makeup on it that had been scared. She was so scared of this moment. She thought that this was it. Everything in me wanted to just say, "No, it's not going to happen. You're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents." I couldn't say that. I took her little hands. I'm sitting down. She's standing up, and we're eye level.
Wow.
And I said to her, I said, "¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name?" And she didn't answer. It's because her real name probably wasn't Princess, right? She was trying to figure out what the Traff wanted her to say. And I just said, "Está bien. It's okay." I couldn't blow our covers that the agents hadn't come to arrest everybody. We were still sitting there in the middle of all these trappers. And I said to the trappers, I said, "It's not time for the party to start." There was a delay. The delay in the movie wasn't because all the kids were there. They were already there. The delay was because some of the Child Protective Services people weren't there with the kids. And so I said, "Take them back in. We still need to negotiate our deal." And I'm trying to figure out how to delay so that they're not having these kids come out and be traumatized like that. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "You've just proven to me that you can do what you said you would do. This is the inventory you said you had." I said, "Why don't, if you bring out these kids, you bring out this, I'm gonna have a great time. I'm gonna be fucked up for the next few days. Why don't we pencil our deal right now?" I was simply trying to delay until the agents came. I had to bring out a notebook and a pen, and I started taking notes about a business plan. And I had negotiated hundreds of business plans in my career. This was second nature to me. But this one was like no other. When the inventory, when the product is children, the conversation gets really, really dark, really quickly. And I was delaying with this. Finally, the agent still hadn't come. And I said, I had this one last stroke genius, really was God just saying, Paul, this is what you should say. I said, you know what? I said, the conversation had gotten so dark, that I couldn't even breathe because of what they were talking about. It was literally a business plan about what you do to the kids and where you get them and how you, all of this stuff. And I couldn't even breathe. It was getting so dark. So I said, guys, I'm willing to do this.
They were allegedly renting them to you for a couple hours.
Yeah.
That's all this was.
Yeah, that's all it was. But it was for the purpose of me funding this resort for them, so they can build out this business. And I said, look, you've proven to me all this stuff. You brought the inventory. You brought what we were looking for. I said, I'm willing to do this. I said, but I want 55%. You guys take the other 45. And I said, I looked at this Edouard guy. I said, you're providing the land, and you put most of this together. I think you should get 30%. The rest of them can split 50.
Yeah, I know this is tough. I know it's tough because it was tough for me. I was overwhelmed. My mind was blown. And at this time, I didn't know about Trump's involvement. I think when I watched this it came out around the time of Diddy. And so Epstein and Trump's little bro affair, it wasn't as heavy. But every time when we would talk about Trump and the golf and the resorts and building and New World Order and, him snatching kids, and it just started getting dark with Trump, I would remember this man right here. So when I started getting intense, have a passion about this trafficking and with these kids and this leniency with these people involved and not wanting to let go of this Epstein file, all I can remember is this right here and what he saw and what he went through. And it is God awful. But we have to know. So while people are making excuses for what's going on, they need to know what really is going on behind the scene in these foreign countries where we're saying, oh, it's okay to let go of the immigrants, because right now they are snatching them, sending them over to foreign countries to be trafficked. This is what our president is doing right now. So we're thinking, oh, well, they're just illegal immigrants. Some of them are not. And if so, send them back home with their parents. Why are you separating these kids from their parents? Because that's the same exact thing that he's saying happened in 2014 when he went undercover. Cartel, And then, aren't we finding out that Epstein and Trump and Diddy was involved with the cartel? Same thing. We just did not or do not know how deep it is. What's his name? Netanyahu, that prime minister that did this to Virginia, choked her. I mean, all of this. Same thing.
There was a bunch of other traffickers there, and they started arguing. I thought, oh, good. We can stop talking about this business plan for a minute. And they started yelling at each other. I says, you know what, you guys figure out what that's going to be. We'll put it here. And it was an argument for almost 10 minutes. Finally, boom, the agents came.
Yeah, but those Zionists, they worship the devil. They worship and they sacrifice kids. And they believe in all this type of stuff.
At that point, they had taken the trackers off. We were laying there. One last stroke of genius, really was God just saying, Paul, this is what you should say. I said, you know what? I said, the conversation had gotten so dark, that I couldn't even breathe because of what they were talking about. It was literally a business plan about what you do to the kids and where you get them and how you, all of this stuff. And I couldn't even breathe. It was getting so dark. So I said, guys, I'm willing to do this.
They were allegedly renting them to you for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
hi,
all it was.
Tony.
Yeah, that's all it was. But it was for the purpose of me funding this resort for them, so they can build out this business. And I said, look, you've proven to me all this stuff. You brought the inventory. You brought what we were looking for. I said, I'm willing to do this. I said, but I want 55%. You guys take the other 45. And I said, I looked at this Edouard guy. I said, you're providing the lab, and you put most of this together. I think you should get 30.
This is what's going on in
30%. The rest
Israel.
of them can split 15%. There was a bunch of other traffic there, and they started arguing. I thought, oh, good. We can stop talking about this business plan for a minute. And they started yelling at each other. I said, you know what, you guys figure out what that's going to be. We'll put it here. And it was an argument for almost 10 minutes. Finally, boom, the agents came, stormed the island, arrested everybody, us included. Bad guys think that we got extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. And at that point, they had taken the truckers off. We were laying there in the sand. I went into this other part of the house where I could get my bags and stuff. And at that point, the Child Protective Services people were in with the children. And to calm them down, they were laughing and singing with the children. And compared to the I heard half an hour before, that laughing and singing, that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. And I started crying. I turned to the agent that was with me. I said, bro, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I had a Lamborghini Aventador that I was going to buy that spring. I said, I'm not going to buy that car. I want to write the check instead. I said, what do you need? And he said, Paul, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to wear a $50,000 watch and negotiate a deal like this. He said, sadly, it's guys like you who are the demand. He says, it's the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, guys with big egos and big money and lust and greed. He says, don't take it wrong, but you're exactly what they're looking for. He says, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life.
Who was this that said that?
This was one of the operators.
One of the operators. Let me ask you this, though. They take the kids. Do they bring them back to their parents?
Depends.
And who's to say that they don't get tried again?
They're getting. Well, see, that's the problem. In Southeast Asia, in Thailand, more than half the children that we rescued were sold by their own families. You can't put them back in that situation. I was in Thailand just a few months ago, working with one of our sister foundations, with the Child Liberation Foundation. We had some others over there working with it. One of them, there was a family there that the mom wasn't working, the dad wasn't working. You know why? Because the 10-year-old could make more money if they were selling her in the brothel, and they figured she could be the breadwinner for the family. They could just sit at home.
What kind of people are these? God. And you mentioned all these other countries, South America and all these other countries. Does any of this originate in the United States?
A lot of it does.
Originates. In other words, families here are selling their children, letting their children go in the state.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is why it's so important that you have a relationship with your kids where they tell you when, oh, go here.
A lot of it starts in the United States.
I'll change your whole life.
Who was this that said that?
This was one of the operators.
One of the operators. Let me ask you this, though. They take the kids. Do they bring them back to their parents?
Depends.
And who's to say that they don't get tried again?
They're getting. Well, see, that's the problem. In Southeast Asia, in Thailand, more than half the children that we rescued were sold by their own families. You can't put them back in that situation. I was in Thailand just a few months ago, working with one of our sister foundations, with the Child Liberation Foundation. We had some others over there working with it. One of them, there was a
Now, I don't know how many times y'all think I'm going to ask y'all to get the likes up. So we just going to pause before I shut down. Double tap the face of your screen if you're on your phone. If you're on your computer or tablet, there's 3 dots at the top right. You can tap that where those buttons are, and it'll take you to the like button. I need them ASAP. This is what some families in Mexico do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but y'all remember that picture I showed some time ago where all them wolves, the men were in some big old ballroom, and it looked like those little girls was just all happy singing a little happy song. Okay, you want me to hang this up and do members only? I think that's what I may have to do. Let's, yeah, the Saudis are heavily involved. A Qatar that he brought to, he allowed he allowed for them to build. He say an Air Force base in Utah. Hell, it may be a brothel. His granddaddy had a brothel during Gold Rush. Okay, so I guess I'll set it for to continue around 10:30, and it'll be members only. Yeah, they think it's a joke. They think I'm playing. I'm just not, boo. My TV too good. That's why they sit here and wait for it.